The champagne glass slipped out of my stepbrother's hand the second he saw me. It shattered across the marble floor. Nobody moved. Not the guests. Not the violinists. Not even the woman standing beside my father wearing my mother's diamond necklace like she'd inherited the right to breathe in it. Then she smiled. Slowly. Cold enough to make my stomach tighten before she even spoke. "Well," she said loudly, "I guess some people really can't take a hint." The ballroom went quiet in layers. "If you're settling in for this one, grab something warm to drink." Because the worst part wasn't what happened at the party. It was what I found 3 nights later in a locked room nobody was supposed to know existed. My name is Naomi Mercer. I'm 34 years old. And until 6 weeks ago, I believed my mother left me nothing except a piano I never learned how to play. I lived in Portland. Small condo. Quiet life. Commercial contract attorney. The kind of work where people only call when they want protection from someone richer than them. Which, ironically, should have taught me something sooner. My mother died when I was 19. Ovarian cancer. Fast. Cruel. The kind that turns every conversation into one you replay forever afterward. After the funeral, my father stopped speaking about her almost immediately. Not aggressively. Worse. Carefully. Like she had become something fragile and inconvenient. Then came Celeste. Perfect posture. Perfect hair. Perfect timing. Within 18 months, she was living in the lake house my mother designed herself. And somehow, over the years, everything inside that house slowly stopped looking like my mother had ever existed there at all. The paintings disappeared first. Then the photographs. Then her music room. Converted into a wine lounge. I stopped visiting after that. Until the invitation arrived. Mercer Holdings Winter Gala. 40 years. Family only. And handwritten underneath in my father's uneven script. Please come home. I should have known better. Because the second Celeste saw me standing in that ballroom, she looked terrified. And I didn't understand why. Not yet. The estate smelled different. That was the first thing I noticed. Not homey anymore. Not cedar wood and old books and my mother's jasmine candles. It smelled expensive. Sterile. Like a hotel pretending to be a family. A server handed me champagne before I even reached the staircase. Nobody recognized me at first. That part almost made me laugh. I grew up in that house. Learned to ride a bike on the driveway outside. Broke my wrist falling from the dock when I was 11. And somehow I'd become invisible inside it. Then Adrian dropped the glass. My stepbrother always had dramatic instincts. "Naomi." His voice cracked. That got everyone's attention. Conversations stalled. My father turned from across the ballroom. And for 1 second, I saw genuine relief in his face. Then Celeste touched his arm. Tiny movement. Barely visible. But something in him changed instantly. Like a leash tightening. "You didn't RSVP, she said. Smooth voice. Controlled. The kind women use when they're furious but don't want wrinkles. Dad crossed the room toward me. Slowly. Like he wasn't sure which side of the floor he belonged on. "You came." He sounded almost surprised. "You invited me." Celeste laughed softly beside him. "Oh, Richard writes sentimental things when he drinks." A few people chuckled. Not because it was funny. Because wealthy people mistake cruelty for wit when enough crystal glasses are involved. I should have left then. Instead, I looked toward the east hallway. Toward the music room. Or where it used to be. The doors were closed now. Locked. That caught my attention immediately. Because my mother never locked that room. Ever. "You renovated it?" I asked. Celeste's smile tightened. "That room is private now." Private. The word sat wrong in my chest. Then I noticed something else. 2 security cameras above the hallway entrance. New ones. Pointed directly at the doors. I didn't understand it at the time. But 3 people looked nervous when I noticed those cameras. Celeste. Adrian. And my father. That was when I realized something important. Nobody at that party was afraid of me being there. They were afraid of where I might wander. Dinner lasted 90 minutes. Felt like 6 hours. Every conversation at that table worked the same way. Celeste spoke. Everyone adjusted themselves around her. Even my father. Especially my father. She controlled the rhythm of the room without ever raising her voice. That kind of power is always the most dangerous. At one point she lifted her wine glass and smiled toward me. To family, she said. Then added, the people who stay loyal deserve everything. Not subtle. Not intended to be. Adrian smirked into his drink. My father stared at his plate. And suddenly I was 19 again. Watching silence do more damage than screaming ever could. Fear's still here. Stay with me. Because this was the moment I started realizing the party wasn't a celebration. It was theater. Halfway through dessert, a man I didn't recognize approached the table. Gray suit. Investment banker energy. The kind that smiles while calculating. He leaned toward Celeste quietly. We'll need signatures finalized before Monday. She nodded once. Then noticed me watching. The atmosphere changed instantly. What signatures? I asked casually. Too casually. 3 people answered at once. Nothing. Business. Routine paperwork. That told me more than honesty would have. Later, while coffee was served, I slipped away toward the east hallway. Nobody stopped me immediately. That almost made it worse. Because it meant they assumed I still wouldn't notice anything. The cameras tracked movement as I approached the music room. The old brass handles had been replaced. Electronic lock now. New wood. Fresh paint around the frame. Like the room itself had been disturbed recently. Then I heard footsteps behind me. My father. Breathing harder than he should have been. Naomi. His voice lowered. You shouldn't go in there. I turned slowly. Why? He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Then Celeste appeared behind him. Perfect timing. Always. That room contains sensitive documents, she said. It's part of the company archives now. Company archives. My mother's piano room. I looked at my father. Is that true? His silence answered first. Then quietly. Please don't make tonight difficult. There it was. Not truth. Not explanation. Management. And I realized something terrifying in that moment. My father wasn't protecting me from Celeste. He was protecting Celeste from me. I left before midnight. Nobody tried to stop me. That bothered me more than if they had. People only relax when they believe they've already won. Rain hit the windshield the entire drive back to my hotel. And I kept replaying one detail over and over. The electronic lock. Why would anyone lock a dead woman's piano room like a vault? At 2 a.m., I called someone I hadn't spoken to in almost a decade. Elliot Vane. My mother's former accountant. He answered on the 3rd ring. Silence first. Then, Naomi. Like he'd been expecting the call someday. That unsettled me immediately. I need to ask you something, I said. Another silence. Longer this time. Then very carefully. Did Celeste finally let you back into the house? Not your father. Not the family. Celeste. I sat upright in bed. What does that mean? You should come see me tomorrow. That's not an answer. No, he said quietly. It's safer. Safer. That word stayed with me all night. The next morning his office looked exactly the same. Elliot's office looked exactly the same as I remembered. Old wooden shelves. Dusty lamps. Stacks of paper files nobody had bothered digitizing because Elliot trusted filing cabinets more than computers. Before he said anything, he closed the blinds. That unsettled me immediately. Then he asked a question that made my stomach tighten. Your father never told you about the annex? I frowned. What annex? The look on his face changed instantly. Not confusion. Fear. Real fear. He unlocked the bottom drawer of a filing cabinet and pulled out a black leather ledger with my mother's handwriting across the front. Property access records. Inside were maintenance logs, security references, blueprint notes, and repeated mentions of something called East Annex B. Hidden access. Restricted entry. Private ownership. Then I saw the address. Not beside the estate. Underneath it. I looked up sharply. What is this? Elliot swallowed hard before answering. Your mother built a hidden level beneath the house 6 months before she died, he said quietly. And according to these records, Celeste has been using it for years. The next night, I went back to the estate alone. Rain covered the lake. The house still looked beautiful from outside. Still my mother's design. Even after everything they changed inside it. The hidden entrance sat behind the wine cellar. 3rd shelf. Pressure latch. The stone panel opened almost silently. Cold air rushed out. Not basement air. Controlled air. Ventilated. Maintained. Someone had been down there recently. The staircase led into a fully built underground office. Safes. Hard drives. Corporate files. Security feeds monitoring every room in the estate, including the ballroom, including the hallway outside the music room, including my hotel corridor from the night before. They had been watching me. Then I noticed something worse. Financial transfer records displayed across one of the monitors, millions moving through shell companies, properties changing ownership, documents carrying my dead mother's name. That's when I heard applause behind me. Slow. Calm. Celeste stood in the doorway wearing a black coat over silk pajamas with 2 security guards behind her. But she didn't look angry. She looked tired. Almost relieved. You weren't supposed to find this until after Monday, she admitted quietly. Then she locked the door behind her. I accused her of forging my mother's signatures. But instead of denying it, she told me something I never expected. She had known my mother long before marrying my father. Worked for her. Protected Mercer Holdings during a financial collapse nobody ever told me about. According to Celeste, my mother discovered corruption inside the company before she died. Executives. Fraud. Federal investigations. People preparing to destroy the family to save themselves. So my mother secretly moved assets into protected structures under my name. The annex wasn't built to hide money. It was built to protect me. Suddenly everything made sense. The panic at the gala. The locked music room. The hidden records. The pressure around Monday's paperwork. They weren't refinancing the company. They were trying to move the last protected assets before I discovered the truth. Then my father arrived. Disheveled. Exhausted. And for the first time in my life honest. He admitted Mercer Holdings should have collapsed years ago. My mother spent her final months secretly saving what she could, while Celeste helped hold everything together after her death. But before I could even process it all, I noticed something flashing red on one of the monitors. An active transfer request. Large portions of the protected assets were already being moved. Not Monday. Now, someone else knew about everything. Who still has access? I asked immediately. Celeste's face drained of color. Only 3 people had authorization. Then she looked toward the doorway. Adrian. That's when everything finally connected. The broken champagne glass. The cameras. The panic when I arrived at the gala. He wasn't afraid of me discovering the truth. He was afraid I'd interrupt the theft. We found him upstairs inside my mother's old music room surrounded by laptops and glowing transfer screens spread across the piano. And the scariest part was how calm he looked. No panic. No denial. Just relief. Like he'd been waiting for us to catch up. Adrian had discovered the annex years earlier and quietly planned to steal everything before the old corruption investigations resurfaced. While Celeste tried holding the company together. While my father stayed weak. While I stayed absent. He waited patiently for the perfect moment to disappear with everything my mother protected. And standing there in that room, listening to him speak about my mother like she was already ancient history, I realized something. The most dangerous thing in that family had never been the hidden annex beneath the estate. It had been the silence holding the entire house together.